So a lot of people are impacted by ice. A lot of people are afraid to go outside. What you gonna do about ice?
Ooh, great question. Well, firstly, here to say abolish ICE. We have to abolish ICE. This is a position that I've held since I was elected to the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council, since I started running for Congress and now state senates. And what's interesting is back in 2019, when we were running for the 2020 election, I had abolish ICE on all of our campaign literature. And for some reason, that was kind of like a buzz phrase that really, uh, I guess I could say, turned some people off. Like I had some people, I remember I had one person in particular who was like, wow, I really agree with everything that you're running for. Well, except this one thing. And what I find fascinating about that is here we are 7 years later, and now abolish ICE is becoming this mainstream idea that is popularized by even some, Democrats who you might describe as moderate or centrist. And which I think really just shows that progressive leftists are always ahead of the curve,
Of course.
always ahead of their times, and are constantly facing pushback. And the only things that are really radical about these ideas is the fact that they don't exist. That's actually, that is what is radical about them. But they're not asking for, these ideas are not radical in concepts. I have been, as I mentioned, in opposition to ICE for a very long time. I was there during the first major raid, the first major recent raid here in LA, which was almost a year ago. I think it was on June 6th, 2025. And I was at City Hall that day. I was accepting an award. I was named the CD13 Pride Honoree for 2025. And it was a really awesome, wonderful experience getting to stand up in front of City Council and just speak on behalf of queer rights and queer issues. I was in full glam. I was wearing this beautiful lavender gown and these sparkly heels, on a high with my certificate and my flowers. And then I'm leaving City Hall with my campaign manager, and I checked my Instagram and I received a message from a fellow activist saying, yo, there's an ICE raid happening in the Pañata District, which is, downtown as the City Hall. So we drove over to see if we could help in whatever way was possible, if anything, just to bear witness. And it turned into this massive thing where basically ICE was there they were doing a raid at a building in the Pañata District. And a lot of neighbors showed up to protest this, like actual real Angelinos.
Yeah.
And then you see these, what I could only describe as tanks rolling through our streets.
God.
And it's these masked agents with these giant weapons. And these are the people that are supposed to make us feel safe. It's quite the opposite. ICE and federal agents moving into California and Los Angeles, they're saying that they're trying to keep you safe, but they're actually creating this big fear amongst people where now our neighbors are afraid to even go outside. They're afraid to go to work. I actually ended up getting tear gassed and was like, I had to run away again in full glam and sparkly heels. And it was such a bizarre, weird experience. And, here I am talking, this was upsetting to me. I can't imagine what it was like for the families of the people that were actually in that building who were ultimately carted off by ICE and federal agents. And I just remember this really sad scenario of these, big unmarked vehicles. They drag our neighbors out, throw them in, and then just speed off. And it was so hard to watch some family members run after these vehicles. And they just drove off into the distance, and who knows where these people are or what is happening. And that really reignited the spark in me to really publicly oppose ICE. And it's not just these big raids. It's also happening at the individual level. One of my neighbors, his name's Raphael. He was abducted by ICE several months ago, and this video came out that went a little viral, and you see these ICE agents dragging him out of his home like he's not even a living being.
Yeah.
They're also totally wearing covered up masks. No way to actually verify if this is ICE or any sort of federal agency. And what really pissed me off about this was just a month or a few weeks prior to that, the California state legislature had just passed this law, which basically demanded that any sort of federal agencies that are conducting their duties, that they do not wear masks, and that they're, presenting their IDs or their badges or whatnot. And so it was a direct violation of California state law. And so obviously I recognize that once I am elected to the state legislature, I'm not going to be able to abolish ICE. But what we can actually do is keep ICE out of our communities, out of our states. And when they are conducting these federal raids, what we have to do is we actually have to require our law enforcement to go after that law enforcement,
of course,
because they're not abiding by our state laws. And I think the way that we do that is by threatening LAPD and LASD that if they don't actually abide by state laws, then they are going to face defunding, which I support either way.
Yeah.